This podcast is about the most important person in your life, you. Join us on the Self-Reflection Podcast for a weekly dose of love and care for the person who'll be with you your entire life. So grab a quiet place, a journal and a cuppa and get ready to get to know your best friend, cheerleader and lifetime companion. Before we start, this podcast is in no way, shape or form a replacement for a good mental health professional and is for entertainment purposes only. Is your cuppa ready? Let's get on with the episode. Welcome to this week's podcast episode where I invite you to grab a journal and sit down and do some reflection on your life. This is not to say that there is problems with your life is perfectly fine how it is, but it's more about building a habit of reflection. In times like these, when the world is a little bit chaotic, if we can all take a little bit of responsibility for ourselves, hopefully things can get better. Today we have the base chakra, the red deck. Base chakra deals with things like money, family, security, the family of birth, and things like that. So these cards quite often bring up really deep wounds for people. And we've got two that have flicked out. So the first card is, what does it feel like to be connected to your needs? This is interesting, especially when you think about the second card that came with it. So what does it feel like to be connected to your needs? Like feel like, not in your brain. This is really embodied feeling of being connected to what you need. I would suggest at this point, if you're going to reflect on it, by all means pause here, but I have an additional activity for you if you're going to do this one. So pause here if you just want to answer the question and journal. What does it feel like to be connected to your needs? If you'd like to do an additional activity, write down a list of your needs. What do you need? This is different from wants. Wants is a desire that comes more from the heart space. A need is something that's really deep in the body. So what are your needs? Pause if you need to right now and write down a list of your needs. The second card that came out, which is quite interesting given the times we're living through, it says, in what situations do you feel out of control? And I don't know about you, but the world feels pretty out of control for me, the outer world. And I can't do anything about any of that. But what I can do is think about, in what situations in my life do I feel out of control? So journal here, and I have an additional activity for this one as well. So one thing you can do is look at what you can control. So there's an activity where you draw multiple circles within each other like a target, and you look at the inner circle. What is something you can control? What are the things within your control? What are things that are sort of in your control? And then as you go out of the circle, things that are completely out of your control. For example, global situations are completely out of our control. We don't have any control over those, except if you're one of those people contributing to those problems, this would be great that you're listening to this podcast. However, I find that unlikely that they would be self-reflective. But in what situations do you feel out of control? Find what you can control. What are the things you can control? What are the things you can't control? You can control your breathing, for example. It's a very simple thing to control, breathing. And then, of course, move outwards. You can't control how other people react. You can't control what other people say, but you can control your reactions to those things. So looking at these two cards in combination, what does it feel like to be connected to your needs? Plus, in what situations do you feel out of control? There is a link there. Now, I've identified the link for myself, but have a think about how those two things, out of control and connected to your needs, how are they linked in your life? It's a really important thing for you to go through this process rather than me tell you. So what does it feel like to be connected to your needs, and what situations do you feel out of control? There are questions for this week. Until next week, thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time to care for you. If anything in this episode came up for you or triggered some response, please call your local healthcare professional or helpline. Always know that you have a place here on earth at this time. We need your magic.